Hello, welcome to Mr. Patrick's Corner. Today we're going to talk about AB5 and the problem we have in trucking in California. What happened was that Governor Pete Wilson, deregulated our trucking industry, just like Jimmy Carter deregulated the interstate freight. When that happened, we lost the ability to get decent money for our freight. Also, when we were regulated, the state made money. Let me say that again. They made money because they got paid a percentage of every load, every bit of freight coming into California. We had to pay them over 4 quarters. Like a little guy like me, when we were regulated, I was paying anywhere from $1,500 to $2,500 a year. That's over 4 quarters. If I had a good quarter, I'd be making between about $2,500, maybe a little more. On a really bad year, I'd make $1,500. But I still paid 3% of my gross revenues to the state of California. Now you think of 3% of FedEx, 3% of UPS, 3% of all the big trucking companies, and you can see there's a lot of money that was going to the state. But we also made money because they kept the rates high. They made sure that if diesel went up, the rates went up. They didn't like a lot of discounting. So if you were going to discount, you had to prove it to the state of California, the PUC, that it was a smart move, and it wasn't going to foul up the industry. Now we have almost 40 years later. We're fighting about AB5 because owner-operators don't want to be employees. They don't make any money because of the taxes, the Social Security, the other taxes that people don't understand. The employer pays half and the employee pays the other half. That's how this thing works. And then you had to pay for your fuel. When you figured in all the costs, you couldn't write off that other. So it was like somebody sticking his hand in your pocket and stealing from you. A lot of these guys, they like being an owner-operator because then they can deduct 100% of their expenses. That's a big factor. Now, if the wonderful government had any brains, they would get rid of all the brokers and all the other trucking companies. They put everything under the government. The government would set the rates, do the dispatching, and give the driver 75%. 75 to 70%. The government would be making a ton of money at 30%. Why? Because the rates would be high, the roads would be getting fixed, and the government could manage that. Also, it would make it more competitive for manufacturers to make stuff in the United States. Right now, Canada and Mexico charge a value-added tax of 19.5%. When they ship stuff out of Mexico or out of Canada, the manufacturers get that money back. And sometimes they're watching the whole situation because of the in and out. A lot of times goods go 20 to 30%, 20 to 30 times across the border to manufacture something. This is the reason you have the value-added tax, because it only comes in when the final product is done and shipped for the last time. Then they have to pay because it's added in. Okay, the Europeans do that too. That's why we're not competitive sending cars to Europe, because they have a value-added tax of 19.5% and a duty of 19%. Now, when they ship cars from Germany to the United States, the manufacturers get a rebate for their value-added tax because the cars are not being sold in Europe. So that 19.5% goes back to the goes back to the manufacturer. So the duty that they pay in the United States is zilch, nothing, because the value-added tax pays for the duty in the United States. Cars come in, they charge 19 or 18.5%, and that is wiped out because of the value-added tax. So it's a subsidy to European manufacturers. Goes with everything. The Chinese also do it. Now, why are we doing this? I don't know. I don't run the federal government or even the state of California. We have this situation in this state where we need to make it easier for manufacturing. But most of our manufacturing now is in tech. Tech is counting for it's getting to the point where they're almost 75% of our manufacture, of our profitability. And the trouble is, you're putting all your eggs in one basket again. Like the American military gets their webbing from overseas. It says it's made in America, but it is not. It is assembled here in the United States, but it is not. The parts are not made in the United States. They're made overseas, probably China, Vietnam, those sorts of countries, and maybe Mexico. We're not doing enough. We have the truckers now saying, hey, I don't want to be an employee. I've invested in my truck, in my time. I need to set my schedule. That's very important to a truck driver. If you're an employee, you don't worry about the truck. You don't worry about anything. But you're not making any money either, because the way it's set up, you're getting taxed. You're getting taxed on every item, but you can't raise your prices. The union is going to try to get you the most, but you still have to pay to get the work. You're not going to make the same money that you're making as an owner-operator. A lot of times these guys work really hard, and they're not really making the money. The fact is, we're not regulating our freight. If we regulated the freight, the owner-operators would be happy, but they're not. They're working for peanuts because the brokers have controlled the market, and that is the problem. Now, on top of it, they want to add in all these other costs, like, okay, you get your own authority, that costs money. You have to have your own insurance, that costs money, and it ain't cheap. And then they want you to buy a new truck. I had an old 1981 International when they were offering rebates to put in to get new trucks. The problem was it didn't pencil out. I wanted to get a Class 7. A Class 7 truck is basically a 2-axle 26,000 GBW. And I could have made good money because I was going to go for a lighter trailer and go with a bobtail. Like you see, those little pickup trucks that are towing trailers. Well, they wouldn't let me because you have to go to a Class 8. And if you buy a Class 8, you're looking at $150,000. They're giving you $50,000, $50,000 to $75,000 in credits, but you're still having to pay almost half the note. And then you add in the insurance and the fuel and the rest of the stuff. You're not saving any money. Your tires are more expensive. Everything is more expensive in a Class 8. And it didn't pencil out. The freight rates we were getting didn't pencil out. That is a problem. Now we've got this AB5. Again, they didn't think very far because the Uber drivers and the Lyft companies, they pushed their own initiative. So their guys aren't. They told everybody this is about Lyft and Uber. Well, it isn't, because they had their own deal which made them exempt from this crazy law. Now we have Sacramento saying, oh, we're going to make you all employees, and then, you're going to get all this goody gravy stuff. Right. The trouble is, if it sounds too good, it isn't. That's the problem. Let's see how the numbers pencil out. And can you get hired? Because if they're paying for union help, they'll want more and more specialization. So you're not going to get those jobs. Those jobs are not going to go to Indians and Pakistanis and Latinos. They're going to go more towards the upper level white people and black people and Asian people. But it's based on the ability. It's based on the fact that you're going to have to buy a newer truck, or the companies are going to have to go for more college educated truck drivers. And that is going to raise the cost. Now, what's that do to consumers? Because consumers don't give a shit about truck drivers. They never did. It's going to cost you more. And a lot of the trucking companies are going to move out of California, just like they did with the pigs. Pretty soon you won't be getting any pigs, any pork products, because they're going to go out of state. The big meat packers don't want to hassle with all the regulations. That's why my talk on Farmer John. But the Farmer John deal, I don't care. I'll just go to the supermarket and there'll be pork products on there. Right. And then you're going to see a tripling or quadrupling. Right now there's a drought in Texas. Beef prices are going to start falling down. But they're not going to the farm, they're not going to the ranchers or the feedlot suppliers. They're going to the big agro businesses because there's only 4 of them. And our great president, Mr. Biden, God be upon him, well, they have a law on the books that says the big companies can't have more than 40%. Now they're controlling 80 to 85%. So they're setting the prices. And a little guy's getting stooped again. Well, I can't talk any more about this subject because I get very, very upset. So, if I were a truck driver today, I wouldn't be one. I'd just simply sit in my, park my rig and watch them squirm. They're already doing it up in Oakland. The next place is going to be Long Beach and San Pedro. Those are our 2 biggest ports, by the way. And then you're going to see San Diego. Now, the only ports that will be available for the independents are going to be in Washington and Oregon. So we're going to lose that freight rates, that freight that's coming in from overseas. They'll just shift their loads to Washington and Oregon, or maybe even to Mexico. Now, have a nice day. I'd like you to subscribe and push a like. Thank you. This is Mr. Patrick's Corner.